I want to start out this breaking story with a little bit of an apology, because this all started to go down after Thanksgiving weekend. And that was at the same time that all the Wade Christofferson stuff came out. I had many people email me about this story of a doomsday minded mom taking her kids to Europe, and no one knew where they were. And I said, oh yeah, we'll get to that. We'll get to that, and we just kind of put it off each week with some of this other stuff. So we have never covered the original story on the newscast. And I just kind of want to apologize to everybody and encourage you to continue sending us news that you find, because eventually we'll get our act together and be able to present it. So thank you guys
This
for
is
all.
The payoff. The trade-off is not having 6-hour long newscasts.
This is true. There is a little bit of a payoff there. So, but we will quickly go over it. I'm sure most of you have been following it. The headlines, and this has made national news, of course, is mom allegedly abducted her 4 children and fled overseas as she feared end times were coming, the police say. And this is why there's a connection to Mormonism. She was raised in the LDS church. She lives in the Salt Lake area. And as we all know, end times rhetoric, stories about Salt Lake being destroyed, things like that. It's kind of baked in. We've all grown up with that. And more recently, we've got Chad Daybell, Lori Vallow, we've got Jody Hildebrandt, we've got Ruby Franke. It's all just there. So this is another, another part of this, I think, which is really unfortunate.
This mom went all visions of glory on her kids.
Okay, that should have been the headline. I should have let you make my slides. So it says a Utah mother of 4 has been accused of abducting her children, allegedly because she feared end times. And again, this is all going back to when it was going down in December. She took off Thanksgiving weekend, and it took a while for the family to figure out, oh my gosh, what is happening? Because when you have shared custody, it takes a while to sort things out. So the picture there on the left are her adorable children, ages 11 to 3. So cute. And there's a picture of Alicia, that's her name. And she has quite the TikTok presence talking about these kind of end time things, which we'll talk about in a second. Alicia Ann Seymour, 35. She's been charged with 4 counts of custodial interference because she shares custody, right? She had the kids for an extended visit over Thanksgiving and decided to forge passports and leave the country, allegedly. Removing the child from the state after abducting the 4 children and fleeing to Europe. So again, another, brace yourselves. It's the end of days. She had quite the presence. I don't know if we all understood this while the story was unfolding in December, that she was a presence on social media warning about end times and that Salt Lake was going to be the hub. It was going to be destroyed. The court documents show that when police officers went to her house, and they went to the house because a child had not showed up to daycare, and also a babysitter had called the husband, you can see there on the top right, and said, I think the kids are gone, and after kind of sorting through, is this alarmist? They realized, oh my gosh, it really is happening. Now there are 2 fathers. The father on the right, he is the father of the 3 older children. There's another father of the youngest 3-year-old. So we're dealing with, 2 fathers who are extremely worried. So the police couldn't get a hold of the mother. It looks like November 29th is when she allegedly went to the airport and took them. So they instantly, set out missing advisory. And I think at this point is when we all started to kind of pick up on something was happening. So when they were investigating everything, the officers found a notebook in the mother's residence where she made a lot of doomsday kind of statements. And she also talked about how she was going to get burner phones, kind of detailed what she was going to do. You can see down there on the bottom, those are some of her TikToks, just one after the other, voice of warning kind of thing. And
is this coming from her, do you know, or is she repeating the message of somebody else?
That's what I'm not sure. And it's interesting because here she's saying, I had a dream of World War III. I watched a few clips, some of her TikToks, and, it seems to be regurgitated from the kinds of things that we heard from Lori Vallow, especially, and Jody Hildebrandt. The idea, I listened to an interview with her sister-in-law, her ex-husband's sister, and she had sort of fallen along with that COVID vaccine, chips embedded in people. They're going to turn into zombies when the end of the world strikes and everybody's going to start eating each other. So I'm sorry, but we hear zombie a lot, right? With Lori Vallow and Jody Hildebrandt and Ruby Franke, that people can turn, children can be evil. So there must be some kind of stream of this in the Salt Lake area. I'm not kidding. I think there is. Here's some footage from her at the airport as she was taking the kids. And again, she would have had to forge documents, which is correct me if I'm wrong, RFM, like a felony, right? To forge a passport and take somebody out of the state. I think it is in a custodial custody kind of a scenario.
Yeah, it's a federal offense.
A federal offense. I think that's what I meant. Yep. Thank you. We're so glad you're here to correct us. But yeah, so footage finally captured him. And can you even imagine how concerned these two fathers were and family members? I mean, they have no idea. Some of her TikToks said that the voice of God told her she'd be safe in Italy. They thought she was going to Italy. She did make a phone call to one of the fathers from France and say, I'm here, but she wasn't. She wasn't any of those places. So for the last month and a half.
No God has ever told a woman she'd be safe in Italy.
I feel like you're right. I was in Italy a couple months ago, and yeah, I know exactly what you mean. So that's all we knew. And I think, again, that the story kind of got lost because it was Christmas time and people just weren't focusing, oh, this crazy Utah, what's going on? But this is very serious and very concerning. So suddenly today is when I first heard about it. It's kind of been unfolding over the last couple of days. Breaking news, Utah children taken by Doomsday Mom are found and now in a Croatian orphanage. So I'll explain this to you because it's a little bit confusing. So what happened, I will tell you this story. It's extremely interesting. You can see a picture of the cute dad there and all the kids. So through her TikToks, Alicia connected with a woman who was like-minded, another doomsday kind of person who had fled the United States with her 13-year-old son and was living in Croatia. And this is where Alicia took her kids to stay with this other woman and her 13-year-old son. I don't know what the plan was, to hole up, to wait till the end of the world, but this is why she was in Croatia for the last month or so. So eventually, I think the hero in this story is perhaps this 13-year-old boy. His name is Cage, I believe. I heard on one of the social media posts that I was watching. He started wondering about these 4 kids that had shown up at his house, right? And this woman, like, what's going on? And so he Googled the names of some of the kids. Are you following me with this?
Yes.
Yeah.
The one who was already there.
The one who was already there. And this woman shows up with 4 kids, and here they are, and they're all living together, and they're in this house. And he Googles the name of one of the boys, and of course he found everything, right? There's an international manhunt, right? There's posts, there's pictures, there's articles. And at that point, he alerted his mother and said, did you know, I'm assuming, that these kids here are in our house, this is going on. The mother, I'm just, imagining, probably was like, oh, I did not know that. I did not know these kids were kidnapped. I did not know this was happening. The mother took everybody to the police station. The Doomsday Mom, the 4 kids, herself, and her son.
Wow.
Right? Isn't that interesting? I would think it would be something where you just are like, I don't want to get caught for, I don't want to be complicit in this, right? Because I did not know that the kids were here illegally. So at that point, the 2 mothers were arrested. And I'm wondering why the second mother would be arrested. Maybe just they are trying to sort out the situation. But because of that, all 5 children, the 13-year-old boy and the 4 children from Utah, are all in this, they're calling it an orphanage. I think maybe it's sort of like it's not exactly like the foster care system, but it is an institutional home for kids that don't have adults to care for them. So I guess, yeah, an orphanage. I just described it, didn't I? But so fascinating. And a lot of this information I got from an interview I saw with the sister of the husband. So instantly, the husband, ex-husband, and the sister and the ex-husband's fiance, they rush off to Croatia, right? So that they can try to get the kids back, try to talk to the kids, try to find out what's going on. But they're running into tons of red tape, translation issues, lost in translation, language barriers. They're working with the embassy. They're working with U.S. officials to try to regain custody of the kids and be able to bring them back to the United States. And these kids are in this orphanage, which is very different from what you would find in the United States. How did they put it? A different standard of care, which you can probably imagine. And so, the kids are really disoriented. They get to see them 2 hours a day, and they try to make connection. They try to bring them clothes, books, but in this orphanage scenario, everything belongs to everybody. So even if they bring their kids clothes, the clothes are then worn by the other kids. It's just a very different scenario that the kids are, kind of having some struggle in. So they really want to get them out there as soon as possible as they're trying to sort this out. But the mother's in jail. The kids are in this holding place. And they're also really concerned about this 13-year-old boy because he's also in there. He expressed he just wants to go home, right? He wants to go back to America. But apparently his mother is his only relative they've been able to find. So they're trying to see if there's anything they can do for this 13-year-old. They do have a GoFundMe. If anybody's interested, you can just Google, kids kidnapped Croatia. And they talk about how now they're trying to raise funds to be able to stay there as long as they need to, because they're not leaving.
They have an attorney.
I'm hoping that they do. They said the U.S. officials have been really, really helpful, but there's such a language barrier and so many different rules. I hope they have an attorney.
I thought I had read that they had retained one.
Yeah. And I hope that by putting this out there on every platform that, they can get one and they can get this resolved. Again, I think they've only been in this place, not, I think, less than a week. It sounds like it just kind of all broke, but even so, they're concerned because, for example, the kids can all watch YouTube there and there are no parental controls. Their kids are just being exposed to a lot of stuff, I know. And it's just a very different environment. And again, they're age 11 down to 3. I mean, you got practically a baby in there. So it's really difficult, but thank goodness they've been found. And moving forward, hopefully it'll all work out. We'll keep everybody posted. But if you're interested, their GoFundMe is right there. More details about trying to, figure out attorneys and flights and care and, all of that stuff. So any thoughts, you guys, on this? It's kind of a crazy story. And I really did mean to bring it up several newscasts ago, but I just haven't. But at least we're covering it all now with this latest development.
Bill?
Just glad that they got found. Yeah. I'm glad it's a sort of a strange order of events that the kid notices the thing and says something from an outside country and that they're located. And this, I'm sure, will get worked out. It may take a minute, but I'm sure these kids will all end up back in the States. And good for this, I think, heading towards a happy ending, at least in terms of getting back to the responsible parent who, or parents, 2 dads who don't have these sort of perspectives about the end of times.
I know, that's the concerning thing. Where does this end? We've seen so many stories like this doomsday point of view, and it's in the air. I just saw an article today in Daily LDS Living that said, preparing your heart for the second coming. I mean, we're reading about this. It's everywhere. So when somebody in the chat had asked, is the 13-year-old boy kidnapped? Not at all. His mom took him as she can. She has custody to another country because she's afraid of the end of the world. You have to do a lot of things that your parents want you to do when you're a kid. So no, and I'm not sure why she's arrested. It wouldn't be kidnapping, maybe just trying to sort it all out. But the 13-year-old is not kidnapped. He's just taken with his mom who has legal custody, and she's decided Croatia, end of world, save her son, from turning into a zombie. So interesting.
All right. Well, thank you so much for that reporting, Rebecca.